off immediately in that moment, but people sure do remember it, so as authentic as you can be, for sure.
Absolutely. So when was it that you all realized that social selling was then to become a key part of your strategy? Was there a change, a point where you absolutely realized, okay, this is where we're diverting from traditional sales technique and adopting social media? Tom, let's go to you on that one.
Yeah, I remember an early sales leader and mentor of mine gave me Jamie Shanks's book. I think it's called Social Selling Mastery, if I'm not mistaken. And that was probably in 2016. And so it was a while ago, and LinkedIn was really a different place back then. But I was sold on the concept of, yeah, social media networks are going to be more and more important going into the future. And so I knew at least having a presence, trying to create a brand, like trying to at least learn the technologies was important. But I think really in the last few years, especially since COVID, where, the major events in person were gone, that's a major way to meet new people, prospects, customers, partners, whomever. And that was gone. And I made some amazing connections on LinkedIn, that people that turned out to be friends, that turned out to be mentors, that turned out to be customers, that I referred them customers, just real true partnerships that, some people I've actually met in person recently, and some I still haven't. But that really has opened up my eyes in the last few years of like, man, you can create some really deep, powerful connections through the internet. And for me, it's mostly on LinkedIn, and it's just been an amazing platform for that.
Okay, well, I think we're all pretty heavy users of LinkedIn now, right? So, Will, you mentioned that LinkedIn, it used to be slightly different, and Tom, I think you mentioned something similar. What is it that's changed about LinkedIn for you?
For me personally, it's just this recognition that actually all of my potential customers, current customers, peers, anybody and everybody that I would like to engage with at some point in my professional career at Vidu, they're all on LinkedIn. And a while ago, I just said, well, yeah, maybe for particular folks or industries, that's true. But maybe in the last 3 years, and to Tom's point, everybody is there now. Everyone is there. And I think you're missing an opportunity if you're not cognizant of that, if you're not aware of that, right? And it doesn't mean that you go out and you post all about your product and you sell. And I use it almost like a diary sometimes. It's just this investment that I try to make, and every day, every other day. And if I don't post for 3 days, I start to get a bit antsy. It's just this thing that I continue to go to and top up now, knowing that the people that I care about, like to whatever degree, you could be a prospect, you could be something else, but like stakeholders connected to me, they're all there. So I think you need to balance your time investment in it, right? But it should absolutely be now a part of your strategy, whether that is selling, converting, supporting, or just building brand awareness and advocacy. The last 3 years, it just seems to have exploded in the sense of everyone is on it.
Yeah, so Chris, as a video content creator then, do you find that your use of TikTok has increased at all? Because it seems like there's been a real shift in the last couple of years that TikTok was seen as this platform where it was, kids dancing and that sort of thing, dance crazes going everywhere. But now it is sort of a very respected and viable selling tool. Is that what you found, or would you disagree?
Yeah, I think it sort of echoes the two previous questions, right? Like I think LinkedIn now, it's more acceptable to post more diverse content, right? I think historically, years ago, it was very much like job postings and maybe new rounds of funding. It was all very kind of high level business information. And I think over the years, it's broken down, and now people are posting more personal stuff. There's more fun content. You're seeing, memes and things, and it's definitely kind of the content has warmed a bit. So I think TikTok's a big part of that, and people creating TikTok content and posting it on LinkedIn. I started doing that probably about 9 months to a year ago, thinking like, I'm not sure how this is going to land. And then over the last 9 months to a year, there's more of that happening. Not that I've influenced it, but you just see that more happening. It's become more acceptable to do that. So I think like for me, I don't use it as a place to sell on, because I remain my profile on there, I remain relatively platform agnostic. I just post funny stuff about sales, but I use the content to post on LinkedIn to build my personal brand. And I think it ties into that authenticity piece, right? Like I've never been the kind of, I don't know, like the sort of stuffy kind of business that you might view from many years ago. I've always tried to connect with people on a personal level. So I think when you talk about authenticity, on your earlier question, for me, like as a salesperson, the biggest battle I've got is before I've met anybody, their impression of me is like down here, because I work in sales. So like naturally they're going to be here. So if I can post authentic content that shows that I'm open to a laugh and I understand how, you know, difficult sales can be and the pressures, and then that kind of gets people to go, actually, I feel like I know this guy, I can level with this guy. And that really helps in those conversations. So for me, that's a real powerful driver for my social selling is, yeah, getting my personality out there, and TikTok's a good way to do that for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a very effective tool for that sort of thing. Absolutely. Tyler, I'm going to come to you for the next question. I think, do you measure your social selling impact and results? And if so, there are so many things you could measure. Which ones are the most important to you in knowing you're spending your time correctly and in a worthwhile manner?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm one of those where I'm more post just on my own branding, right? So kind of to some of the, you know, other panelists here, I mean, they're absolutely right. Like 2014, 15, like it was sell. You were on there and you could get contact information. And if you knew if your prospect was on LinkedIn, like they were forward thinking, and therefore, you know, especially in the MarTech space, like they're open to a conversation, and it was pitch. That's all it was. Now, like you will ruin your brand by doing that. Like your personal brand, your company, whatever it is, like you'll just run it right through the mud if all you're doing on the platform is pitching and not like kind of, you know, giving back to the community. Like that's what it's about. You know, I think all social media, regardless of what it is and what your area of expertise is, like you have to be giving something back, whether it's cooking or fitness or sales or marketing, or it doesn't matter. And so, you know, for me, the only thing I'm measuring, you know, is the vanity of it, which is, you know, how many people are following, connections. Like I do measure that kind of stuff. And, you know, how am I growing my network? You know, how many, you know, month over month, year over year, like how many engagements did I get, like likes, reshares, comments, that kind of stuff. And more so because I want to make sure that I'm continuing to provide content that's going to help my network. And if I do that, right, you know, the old Zig Ziglar or whatever, like help enough people get what they want, you will get what you want. And then from that, yeah, of course, I get introductions, I get, you know, like amazing people I meet, I get prospects from it, I get introductions into prospects, those kind of things. But I don't measure that, you know, I mean, a little bit, but not really. My biggest measurability is just simply how is my network growing? You know, and as long as that's growing, that means that the content I'm delivering is relevant. It means that my brand is moving upward. It means that I'm not, you know, pissing off my employer by, you know, running their reputation. So I get to keep a job. So that to me is really, that is what it's all about. Like, shares, comments, that. And as long as, and I am measuring that, as long as that's going up, I feel like I'm doing at least an okay job. Yeah.
I think something that we have hit on is that, you know, this moment of change that you sort of dated between sort of 2014 2016. What is it in buyer behavior that changed at that juncture then? I think we'll come to each of you with that, but let's start with Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty, you know, well documented that, you know, before social media and before the internet, you know, sellers had a lot of the power, so to say, right? They could do the research, and people might not be able to do that reverse research on you or your company. And so there's a lot of, you know, I think that's where a lot of the negative stipulations and reputation of sales comes from. And, you know, that power has flipped. You know, there's so many resources for a prospect or a customer to go about and do their research before they talk to you, right? And so LinkedIn's certainly one. They're absolutely going to check out your profile. They want to make sure that you know what you're talking about, that you're trustworthy. They're going to check out your competition. There's, you know, a lot of third-party resources with intent data and review sites and things like that they can check out how you stack up compared to your competitors and things like that. And so I think because of that, we've been talking a lot about like posting content, creating your brand and things like that, which I think are really important. But even if you're at let's say you're not doing any of that, to at least have yourself buttoned up on your own profile, because I know if I'm if I were to go out and I were to spend thousands or tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on a product or a technology, I'm absolutely going to look up the person that is trying to sell that to me and trying to form a relationship, and see if me and that person are on the same wavelength. If it's someone I can trust, do they know what they're talking about, or do I not feel comfortable taking a bet with this person? So I think there's a lot more power in the customer's hands, and having a dialed in LinkedIn profile, for example, is just one way in a lot of different ways that you can build trust and show that you're someone that can be a true consultant to their business.
That's some great stuff there. Will, same sort of question. What is it? Do you think that buyer behavior has changed? Has buyer behavior changed?
No, I think to Tom's point, that is exactly it. It's this democratization of information, but also access to other people that have that information. You don't sell in a vacuum, right? LinkedIn is this big connected mesh, all these folks that know each other, right? You're only 1 or 2 degrees of separation away from the last person that Will or Chris or whoever sold to. Mm-hmm. So I think it's about information and ease of access, but it's also it really is about reputation. It's about, in every interaction you have, whether it's through a direct message or more publicly in comments or on a post, it's about just oozing that credibility, right? Not manufacturing it, but just trying to be humble, true, and honest, because that's increasingly a part of now, like Tom said, the buyer's decision making. They're going to check you out. They're going to look you up. They'll look for cues that indicate that they can trust and you respect their time. But they're going to go to their peers, and they will find the last person that you sold to, and they will ask them, and they'll do it publicly or privately. So I think just being aware of that's very, very important. The other thing I'd mention on that real quick is that sellers, I think, sometimes can, and it's not their fault, right? They can sometimes get that bit wrong, and we've all heard of the dreaded pitch slap, and people coming onto LinkedIn and just self-promoting and trying to sell in a very overt way. And I see more often than not, like a lot of more junior or less tenured sellers do that. And maybe we'll talk about this later, but I really believe that's the role that they're within. Those are the metrics and the measurements placed upon them, right? If you have a target to hit that month, it can be very difficult as a rep to step back and say, I'm going to build my brand for 4 months. I'm not going to expect an immediate return. And I'm going to be very careful and deliberate with my time, and I'm going to invest in that. We'll probably talk later on about it, right, Joe? But this kind of leads back to my intercom days. I'm the manager at times that said, what are you doing on LinkedIn? I said that, I said that because I think the structures that we put in place in businesses, in teams, especially in sales, it doesn't really incentivize what we're all talking about here, which is just like really credible, authentic, honest behavior on a social platform, and that investment in the bigger picture. So I think something needs to change in terms of how we comp and report reps for this sort of stuff. Maybe instead of just having a quota, if companies really care about social, we ought to have a parallel quota that states, well, I'm not going to measure you on ops. I'm going to measure you on number of creative posts, right, or authentic posts. And that forms a part of your performance review, because it does roll up and it does impact the brand as a whole. So maybe we'll get into it later. I just think that there are a lot of sellers out there listening to this thinking, like, I'm a target to me. It's not your fault.
Let's go for it right now then. So, guys, your thoughts on Will's idea then, of being judged not on ops but on a creative post. What do you think to that?
Well, ops plus, right, as a subset of target in that forms performance review. It's not how you get paid, but it's a part of what. And this is if a company says that we care about social, right? We're getting into all sorts here.
Yeah, the only thing I think I know where Will's coming from with that. Again, I definitely see the value, and I know I've met people who have said, I want to create content like you, but my company won't allow it. I think that when it's done best, it comes from a really genuine, honest place. Like if you want to do social selling, you want to use LinkedIn as a platform. You want to build a personal brand for whatever reason that might be, because you're going to carry your personal brand with you. You're not business to business, depending on where you go, right? So I think you need to be genuine and truthful. My only kind of challenge, I suppose, on a model like that is if you sort of incentivize people to do posts, the quality is potentially going to go down. It doesn't necessarily come from a genuine place. I don't think that's where Will's coming from, but I think that's the balance. If people are listening to this going, okay, cool, I'm just going to tell my team they need to post every day, then the quality isn't necessarily going to be there. So I think it needs to come from a really genuine place. And I think what I've definitely noticed, I was barely on LinkedIn at the start of 2020, to be totally honest, so I can't speak about this shift in 2014, 2015. It was really interesting to hear Tyler's thoughts, what he was saying about what it was like and pitching. It was super, super interesting. The thing that I have noticed, and the thing that you will see, and everybody will see this, is that it's just personalization is key, right? Everybody is talking about being human and being personal, and it feels like that's doubled up because everybody's been stuck at home, right? So we're finding ways to be personal. You can do that when you meet people face to face. Naturally, you're going to pitch, but you're just going to exude that personal touch, and that's what I'm going to pitch Vidyard, but all about that kind of video outreach as a way to show who you are and deliver your personal touch whilst also delivering the business piece. So I think absolutely businesses should encourage people to use LinkedIn, but I think that it's important that people are keen to do it. It needs to be self-driven, and they need to have a passion to be able to create the content that they want to create and find a way to dovetail that with what they're also trying to achieve in their role.
Yeah,
Tyler, anything to add on that one? Or? Oh, sorry, carry on.
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'd add in there. I agree 100% with Chris. I think I love Will's thought on it, but I think of a lot of junior people into businesses, and they get excited, and I just think of some of the maybe not so business related stuff they may want to post about here and there that could get us in trouble. But I think there's a comment in there, Crystal made it about, some companies, almost prohibit some posting, and they really handcuff their employees. Like that practice has to end. Like I do think this should be something where you promote that behavior within your, it should be part of your company culture. And you should even go so far as to maybe having some courses. Maybe you have them join some awesome online panelist webinar like this, where they learn how to social sell, but like they learn that behavior. And I think that is important for a company, because that message, it teaches them a skill set they're going to need, because part of your job as an employer is to give people a skill set, not just they're successful at your company, but they're successful in life. Like, ultimately, that's what I want my employees is. I hope they stay here forever. They're not going to, and I want them to be successful regardless of what they're doing. And if I do that, and externally, people, prospects, other companies, candidates that are coming in, see I have the culture of that, where people are posting, people are enjoying, like that's going to help me recruit the best customers and the best talent to work for me. And I think it actually does kind of feed into each other to ultimately get what I want, a successful, happy, business and customer base. And, we go back, like we said earlier, it's not selling anymore, it's social, right? You have to focus on the network and this and that. And then that selling will start to, well, not the selling aspect, but the lead generation aspect of it should start kind of taking care of itself to some degree. But yeah, I 100% agree with Will in the sense of like, let your employees, let the people of the business do it, teach them how to do it. And then Chris's point, there's got to be some sort of kind of like training accountability around it. Otherwise, it could get a little wild, at certain, especially during certain topics. So we do want to have some constraints on there, because some people aren't as conscious of their brand as maybe they should be, or the business's brand, and that still does have to be into consideration, I suppose.
Some extra context behind the statement, if I can. Oftentimes when I'm speaking with people, it's really binary, right? Either they don't do anything, or it's like, we need to manufacture this. Like everyone needs to do it, and then they get hung up by 3 months later the ops aren't coming from it, and that it's the way they measure and attribute success to reps. And I agree, we don't want to just blindly encourage people to post, but I can guarantee there are 1 or 2 people within your team right now that are good at this, that want to do this, but in some way feel inhibited because they can do it. And at the end of that performance review period, if they've not beaten their competition, if they've not done better than their rep, right? Well, I don't care that you're on LinkedIn. You didn't hit your number. And I think that's, maybe we're all saying the same thing here. I think that's what needs to change. It's not that it becomes a formal expectation. We don't mandate that people do that, but we find ways to like really lift up and reward people that do it in an appropriate way. Like I see some of the best SDRs and salespeople out there. They do this. They do it really well. But they didn't. There are so many stories I hear where the rep has really had to fight, and there's been friction, and they've moved on to a PIP, or they've been in a period of underperformance. And then the social selling really starts to pay dividends, right? The brand really comes alive. So it's more this idea that businesses talk a lot about, we need to be on social. Everybody needs to be on social. I think we need to find better ways to encourage the right types of reps to do it. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because then the content that is created will naturally sort of, you know, the quality would be there for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's a skill. It's a skill, and it's a learned skill, and not everyone's going to be able to do it. And I think the best that can do it ought to be rewarded for it in a meaningful way, not just, well, if it pays off and you start smashing your numbers because of this, great. There are a lot of additional benefits to being represented on social as an individual. And this is more my comment about me being a manager in Intercom. I didn't recognize that, you know, and to this day, I feel we missed an opportunity there, and I think I was an inhibitor in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but an important lesson learned, though, sure. So this is quite a tricky question. I think, Chris, you touched on this with how you use your TikTok. Is it best to focus on one platform or across multiple? I think it's a sticking point for quite a lot of people. So if we go for Tom, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what your goal is, right? If you are a salesperson that is using this as a way to build out your network, and let's just assume that your customers are on LinkedIn in this scenario, because some industries they're not, maybe there's a better place for you to be spending your time. I personally find that you want to spend as much time on that platform as possible, if that's what your aim is. If your aim is to, you know, grow your reach more and to, you know, create a bunch of different types of content and, you know, grow your audience and things like that, then you know, maybe it's right to go and experiment in TikTok, in Twitter, in other places, you know. But I think it all depends on what the end goal is. I think if I were to go on TikTok, for example, and stick there, I don't think that the VP of sales who I'm trying to sell to is probably spending a lot of time there. If I create videos and then I post them to LinkedIn and you know, you make it kind of accessible, I think that's wise. It's a way that you can break out and stand out. But I think it's all about trying to keep with the end consumer in mind and what the end goal is there. So for a salesperson like me selling to sales leaders, LinkedIn is really probably one of the best ways I can be spending my time, you know, on top of emails and cold calls and things of that sort.
I think if nothing else, we can surely send this webinar to LinkedIn as an advert for, hey, LinkedIn's great, we really like it. Tyler, anything to add on that? Multiple platforms versus one?
I mean, you know, it's kind of to what the other points were, is like, you never want to force yourself to kind of do anything. Like if you're, I primarily do stick into LinkedIn just because that's, for me, I do, you know, from a business standpoint, for prospects, for candidates, for growing my office, growing my team, that's kind of where that universe is. I do a little bit like through Instagram, Twitter. I don't use, like me personally, I just don't use Facebook other than to support other people. I do go on there, but like, I think like if you're good at TikTok, like, and you're comfortable there, yes, use it, right? If you really like Twitter, and you like the way that platform's set up, use it, absolutely. Like, you know, I think it's like anything in life. Don't force yourself to do something if you're not comfortable, if you don't want to do it. But yeah, I mean, understand that the more limited platforms you use, the more limited your reach is going to be. And then understanding the difference of how each platform works, right? Like, you know, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, like they're all used differently. And so how you kind of approach the content. And so starting out, I'd say probably go where it's comfortable, because it can be tricky between different platforms to create the different content that still doesn't dilute the message or whatever it is. So yeah, me personally, I do stick on one, more so for my sales, and then my personal life and other things kind of go into other platforms. And that's typically my approach and my advice on it.
I think you've got to be really careful, because ultimately social networks are designed to keep you on them, right? They're designed to keep you scrolling. So if you're trying to manage and say, well, I'm gonna social sell on Twitter and TikTok and LinkedIn, you're going to lose your day to that. So I think they're all perfectly viable channels to sell on. I know some people that are really successful on TikTok, more in the B2C space, to be totally honest with you, but I know that it works in the B2B. And I know that there are some amazing sales tools that integrate natively into Twitter. But I think you have to be really strategic if you're going to use multiple channels. And I would say multiple channels probably work best if you're looking to speak to a specific person. Like if you know, Tom, to your point, you're looking to speak to a VP of sales at one of your target accounts, you want to find them everywhere. And ultimately, you know, that just becomes more channels. You want to tap them up on Twitter, and then eventually they're going to be like, who is this guy? They just keep like that, and then they can't say no. But I don't think you can kind of say, I'm going to social sell everywhere, because you are just going to be, you're just going to be battling against too much other noise, and you're going to lose, it's not going to be a great use of your time. So absolutely use all the channels when you know what you're doing and who you're targeting, but ultimately, yeah, stick to the one that works best.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, there's been some really great information coming up here. So what we're going to do real quickly is just a reminder that today's webinar is brought to you by Lead Forensic, which is software which in essence can tell you who is visiting your site, including those from your social channels, and can even track specific social selling journeys through your website, along with providing you with valuable contact information so that you can close those deals. There's going to be a poll that pops up in a couple of seconds, and if anyone would like to book a demo with us, then, well, please do. You can try Lead Forensic that for free. If anyone that starts the trial today, will also give away a copy of The Ultimate LinkedIn Sales Guide by Daniel Disney, who we work really closely with. It's a fantastic book. It's offered exclusively to you as attendees of our webinar for today. So we'll give you a few more seconds just to click on the poll and decide that actually, yes, you definitely do want to have a look at what Lead Forensic can do for your business. Excellent. Okay, so guys, just to wrap up then, if there's one key takeaway that you would like everybody to remember from this webinar, from your perspective on social selling at all, what would it be? Let's go with Will first, please.
Ooh. Lots of them.
Want some more time? Can we go to someone else?
Yeah, no, I don't. It piggybacks off of what we were just talking about, right? Don't spread yourself thin. Ultimately, whatever network you choose to go deep on, you could go deep on it, right? Especially if it's your first time doing this. Don't spread yourself thin. Don't dilute your focus. Don't get distracted. And well, where do I start? Start where your audience is, where your buyers are, where your stakeholders are. Just go there. Like at Vidu, we're a two-person company. There's me and my co-founder. I don't have time to be everywhere all at once. I had to make a decision to be on LinkedIn, right? Shut down our Slack community the other day because I just don't have time to invest in it, and I want to do it in a meaningful way when we've got a community manager. So I think there's nothing wrong with you saying no to things and really going deep on a platform like LinkedIn or whatever it's going to be, and then taking 12 months to figure it out. So yeah, time is not against you. Take it. Go really deep. Just pick a lane and just start posting, start interacting. You can really do no wrong, provided you don't say anything you shouldn't, like Tyler said.
Chris, your thoughts? One final lesson?
Yeah, very much to Will's point. Like, focus on what you want to post and be honest and genuine about it. I think posting is a really good place to start, right? Because I think social selling, we've covered it all. Tom was talking about, get your profile in order, all that stuff, but do create content. And I get asked all the time. I create a lot of video content. Some of it's quite heavily edited, and I've learned how to do that over a long period of time. And people will reach out to me and say, I want to make that video that you did. I've got no experience making video whatsoever, but I want to make it. And I'm like, I can teach you, but you'll spend an unreasonable amount of time learning how to do it, and it is not going to be a benefit. So, what do you want to do? If you've got great ideas, or even if you haven't got great ideas, like post about that. Like, be engaging. If you want to start posting, write about what should you start posting about. Engage with people. Look at what people are talking about, types of creating content. So, put yourself out there. Be transparent. Expose yourself a bit if you don't know what to post about, but just be visible. Like, be there. Again, going back to that kind of networking dinner. You could be the person at the side with the free drink watching people networking because you've never networked before, or you could be the person just in the middle of the room going, this is weird, I've never done this before, how does this work, and talking to people, and people will engage you. It's just a great place to start. So just get out there and do it.
Thanks very much, Chris. Tom, final takeaway.
Yeah, I'd say to play the long game, right? We've all got probably a lot of years left in our career, and like I was saying earlier, LinkedIn or social media is just another thing on top. When you think about a personal brand, it's really just your reputation in the digital world. And so, I think Will mentioned it earlier. If someone is considering buying from you, if they're considering hiring you, if they're considering partnering with you, they're going to do their due diligence, right? And they're going to ask around for mutual connections and people that have bought from me or hired me in the past and say, what's Tom all about? And so everything that you're doing, digitally adds up to what your reputation is. So what you're posting, are you pitch slapping people? Are you connecting and pitching them? Or are you being thoughtful? Are you asking questions? Are you trying to treat it like the dinner that Chris mentioned, which I think is a great analogy? And so I think you just want to represent yourself well. It's not about trying to close someone the first day you connect with them. But if you treat it as a 30-year process versus a 30-minute process, I think that's when, a lot of benefits start coming to you.
Absolutely. Tyler, last final thought.
Yeah, I really appreciate everybody coming on here. I definitely stole some ideas from you guys, so I appreciate that. I love what Tom is saying there, and kind of, Chris as well, like about, just buttoning it up, and, Will, like how people are going to search for you, right? Get your customers to engage, make it look good, put some collateral in there about your business, like kind of know what your product does, add that in there, engage with other people. But like for me, the biggest challenge is, okay, where do I start? And as somebody kind of said it earlier, I don't remember if it was Will or Chris, but like, I think it's dead on, where it's almost like a journaling. Like, so an easy way to start with, I think, especially LinkedIn is for posts, is, use it as like a gratitude journal or a debrief end of the day journal, and just put some simple stuff down. And you'd be surprised, I think for most people, you'd be surprised how universal your accomplishments and your challenges really are. And people relate to that almost immediately. So, hey, you won a deal today, post about it. Like, hey, I got this big deal today, and here's why it meant something to me. Lost a deal. Hey, I lost this deal today. Here's why. Right? I whatever it is. And two things. One, yep, you get your posting going. But number two is, it's something everybody should be doing anyway, kind of journaling. And over time, you find your voice. Over time, you obviously, as everybody was saying, is you get better at that practice. But to me, yeah, I mean, just get in there, clean it up, and if all else, can't think of anything, just kind of do a quick 1 or 2 sentence journal type posting, and that's a pretty good place to start. And everybody, I think, would be surprised how universal, the human condition really is.
And then once you've done 1 or 2 ideas like that, I imagine it's surprising how free-flowing the ideas will then come for later content. Yeah. Well, gents, this has been absolutely fantastic. So Tyler, Tom, Will, Chris, appreciate you taking some time out of your day to join us for this webinar. If you'd like to join us for another webinar, we do have another one on Thursday, which is titled Digital Frustration, the Thorn in the B2B Buyer's Guide. I've been Joe Ducarreaux, the host of this webinar. Gents, it's been a real pleasure, and we'll see you all again soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.